Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Old Dudes, New Tricks. We're going to do something a little different this time. Brought on our first female guest, a friend of mine, Emily Miller from Republic Bank. What's up, Emily?
What's up?
She's a big podcast fan, and she may be the only female that has listened to every episode of our podcast.
Well, maybe the other Emily. Maybe your wife.
Well, that's more of an obligation more than anything else. That's not...
And to make sure you're not saying anything about her behind her back too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We talked about Emily and my Emily doing a podcast together, but I tell her, I said, that has nothing but trouble in my future if that happens.
What was the name you said we were going to call it?
Old Chicks, No Dicks.
Well, I hope so. Because if not, there's a whole little fetish area for the other sort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man. So anyway, we just kind of going to go on here. We got some questions for Gary. He's the expert in everything. And one of the things, Emily and her husband has just started a new diet. They had a traditional diet and they're moving towards a paleo. I'm not going to say primal diet because they, like us, participate in a program, a company called the Fresh 20. What the Fresh 20 is, it is a company that sends you a menu for 5 dinners each week. And on those 5 dinners, they have 20 menu items that you go and you buy at the grocery store. Also, there are 20 additional items that are like your spices and things like that you should have on stock all the time. And it's really nice for a busy family type person if you're looking for meals that are not routine. Every week it's something different and you do a lot of different varieties. So that's awesome. Plus, you can pick and choose your meals. Really, you can go in there and say, "Can you do?" No, that's a different. Okay, that's a different company. But anyway, you can say, "Okay, I don't want this meal, so we're going to cut it to 4," and then maybe you can pull up an old meal or something like that. It's not.
No, you can choose paleo friendly. You can choose vegetarian. You can choose gluten free, and I think there's regular. So you can kind of.
Oh, okay.
Customize per se what for what your diet restrictions or plans or wants are, but like Dwayne had mentioned with I wouldn't say so much convenience because there's a lot of prep work involved, but I think in order to eat healthy, you kind of have to put the work in for it anyways. There's probably really not so much of a thing that's going to be a quick, easy fix and still getting the whole nutritious meals that you really want to. But the one thing that I've really appreciated about the Fresh 20 is the variety that we've had. Prior to doing the Fresh 20, I could tell you a weekly meal plan for us consisted of hamburgers and sweet potatoes one night, chicken and broccoli another night. So it would just be like a meat and then one simple side dish. And usually that side dish would be a roasted vegetable of some sort every single week. And it just got to the point where I was like, this is boring. There's no flavor. I mean, it was easy because you didn't have to think about it. But with this Fresh 20, we have been cooking things that we would have never thought to put together. What was the one meal, Dwayne? Do you remember that Emily mentioned to me that kind of turned it on for us? Which it was the sweet potato with the kale and the sausage and the sun-dried tomatoes, and it was all mixed. And again, I never would have thought to put all that together. And when she had mentioned it to me, we were running one morning and she said it. I was like, that sounds really good. I said, send me that recipe. And she sent it over and I said, I think we need to check this out a little bit more. And I'd say probably for the past 3 weeks that we've been doing it, we may have had one meal that we don't really like. So, but it's been interesting. So.
Well, that's the thing I deal with. And I'm glad there are companies like this. Like I have a basic cookbook that I put together, but it was just to get people started. And it was never meant to be a long-term cookbook because I was like, there's 50 bazillion cookbooks out there. I don't need to write another 300-400 page paleo cookbook with nice pictures and all that. It was, but I like it's difficult because where the lack of variety comes from today, to be honest with you, is most people just don't know how to cook.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I mean, I don't mean to be a dick about it, but I deal with clients and literally 90% of the clients that come up to me go, I don't know how to cook. And I mean, wait, you're in your 40s. What do you mean you don't know how to cook? No, I haven't cooked a meal in months.
Right.
And I'm dumbfounded. And I'm not saying you're that way. I'm just saying most of America doesn't even know their way around an oven, but they got a big $4,000 oven in their huge kitchen, and the thing's never been turned on except for to heat water. It's crazy.
Yeah. And Dwayne, I think you and I think have a similar background in how we were raised, and Gary, so you may be the same, but for Dwayne and I,
similar to us too.
Okay. I grew up I was in a single family household. It was, just my mom raising us. She was working 9 to 5. I grew up on frozen bean burritos. Come home, stick it in the microwave. That's my dinner right there. So I was never really around someone that was in the kitchen and maneuvering around with the pots and pans and the different tools and gadgets and different recipes and stuff like that. So for me, cooking has always been kind of and I'm a very neurotic type A person. So cooking is by the book. If it calls for a half a teaspoon of something, it gets a half a teaspoon of something. So it's never been really that enjoyable. But with the Fresh 20, what's nice, having all the recipes there and having the convenience of having your shopping list. So I go to the grocery store and, it's all laid out right then and there. And then again, introducing me to the things I never would have tried. Fennel. I never knew what fennel was. What is this? I'm going around the produce shop and looking for stuff, and finally I have to pull a Kroger employee over and say, I'm sorry, do you carry fennel? Can you tell me where it is? So
I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. So it's been interesting.
Well, and another way to do that too is to join a CSA, a community supported agriculture,
right.
And you'll get a lot of things that you've never seen before, and you kind of look at them, you go, oh boy, I've got 5 pounds of this and I don't even know what this is.
Right.
And I go on the internet and I'm going through pictures trying to figure it out, because the one I belonged to wouldn't even tell me what it was. I just get a box and I'd be like, I don't know what that is.
Gosh.
And you go, I just don't want to throw that in a pan and start eating it. It could be really spicy for all I know. And fennel was one of them. I remember getting fennel. But it's good because people do get bored. I'm a little different. I mean, I did grow up that way. I grew up a latchkey kid. My parents weren't around a lot. I fed myself, ate at other people's houses all the time.
That's me.
Yeah. And I mean, we ate some horrible deep fried bologna. Oh, we ate deep fried bologna and white bread with ketchup. That was like our go-to.
But I lived on ramen noodles too.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a little different though. At 13, I started working in restaurants. Yeah. So I started to learn how to cook at an earlier, at least as a teenager.
Yeah. Well, remember, we owned a restaurant when I was 13, and so I ate heavy diner food all the time.
Well, that's what I learned how to cook, that and Mexican food, because I worked at a Mexican food restaurant and then a traditional, home food, burgers, chicken fried steak. All that stuff. And I just, but that's been lost. I mean, kids today, forget it. They don't know how to cook a thing. And do they not know how to cook it? They don't want to cook it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's kind of like you have to relearn. And I'm glad, because you have to take that initiative in the beginning to say, all right, I'm going to have to figure this out, because people expect me to hold their hand. And I tell them flat out, if you expect me to hold your hand, you need to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. This is Gary's tough love. You either figure it out or you're out of here. I ain't got time for this crap of me being your coach for the next 5 years so you can figure out how to lose 5 pounds, gain 10 pounds, lose 5 pounds. It's just, once you figure it out, it's pretty easy. It's basic. It's just anything. It's that initial learning curve. And I'm glad you guys started with paleo, because what I tell older people with paleo is it's an elimination diet. So most people, it's around the culmination of symptoms of where they're starting not to feel so good is right around 40. It hits later 30s to 40, and my allergies are awful. I've got eczema. I've got these weird conditions, irritable bowel, and it takes that long for our horrible diet to kind of proliferate itself into all these tragic symptoms. And the elimination diet, by doing paleo, it eliminates a lot of the things that cause that. So it's a good place.
Quick question. If you went strict paleo, mm-hmm. Let's say that you've got digestion issues going on, or, what other element, how long typically do you see that it takes for your diet to kind of clean up before you start seeing benefits of it?
You'll see it very rapidly for most people. I did it a little differently. I did actually an organic cleanse, which was not Jillian Michaels in a box. It was actually a program in a book. I had to read the whole book, and then it was based more on a vegetarian diet. So what I did is I implemented all these new foods, and I did it that way. But that's not too much different. It was about 5 to 7 days where I started to feel the real difference. And it was the first 3 days I felt like shit. I mean, I felt like I had the flu.
Right.
I felt horrible because my body's just releasing all these toxins and just dumping everything. So I'd say on average, I tell people though, you got to stick with it for 30 days. If you're going to go strict for 30. And then it's much harder for you to rebound back into your old lifestyle. Because what will happen is you'll go out like I did, like an idiot, the dummy I was. I was with my girlfriend. We went out and had beers and Mexican food the day after I got off it.
Whoa.
I was so sick. And she knew it because she had to sleep with me that night. And it was growling and farting and belching. And I was miserable. And now, you know, it would have been one thing if we would have made it at home from fresh ingredients, but no, we went to a restaurant and did all this in a restaurant, which made it 10 times worse. And because there's nothing wrong. It's where we went. I could have went and had a burger. I would have had the same result. But yeah, so it's one of those things, if you could just stick with it, get that 30 days in, and you're reducing your sugar intake at the same time. And I'm not a big fan of drastically reducing your sugar unless you're pretty tough. We talked about this in the last one, because sugar acts just like cocaine, heroin in the brain. Mm-hmm. And the studies have shown it takes 12 to 18 months to wean yourself properly off sugar. Can you do it much sooner? Sure. But people have a yo-yo effect with it. If they do the 10-day detox and just cut out all sugar, I've watched it. First of all, they're bitchy, crabby, and mean. Because it's like a drug addiction. They are pissed off without their sugar. And they didn't realize how much they were relying on it until you cut it out. And they go, well, wait, what? Bagels? My oatmeal? I go, complex carbohydrate and a simple carb. Those are sugars. Those are gum. You got to weed that stuff out. And they're like, oh. You know, they were thinking just the scoop sugar, not where it was contained.
Yeah. And Emily, you guys had never really had a big sugar diet in your house, right?
No, we're of the mindset of we just don't buy it because we don't want it in the house. If it's in the house, I don't have a lot of self-control if it's here.
Oh, no one does.
Yeah. So we just, we don't keep a lot of that stuff. One thing that always amazes me though, when Gary kind of talking about, your clients and saying, no, what bagels, oatmeal, it amazes me how many people don't really understand the makeup of food. And
none.
And you go into the grocery store and you see fat-free this or sugar-free this or, whatever the labels are, and people just take it for granted and pick it up and put it in their shopping cart and think, oh, I'm doing the right thing. And it's like, no, not at all.
The three main ingredients in American food today, or four, I should say, I'll add sugar, is basically wheat, soy, corn, and raw sugar. I mean, that's basically what the human diet primarily consists of today. And that's the biggest problem. And that's why I tell people too, in my books, I go, you have to educate yourself. You can't just get a plan that maps out everything for you and tells you exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to exercise, what are the repetitions, how many sets, what you're doing, how much cardio you have to do. Oh, then you eat this. No, you have to figure it out. And you have to do it by trial and error because everyone's a little different.
Well, and the thing about finding an exact plan that works, it'll work for you for the first, 6 weeks or however long, but then you're going to plateau.
And you're going to get bored.
Right, and you're going to get bored. And then also you're going to see these drastic changes in the beginning, and then next thing you know, nothing's going to happen.
Well, a lot of people use it as a quick fix too. One of the, a lot of clients I used to get in the beginning next to summertime was, hey, I'm going to Hawaii. I've got 30 days. I need to lose the weight. I'm going, we're not going to do that. Either you're going to change this. It's a lifestyle. And I know that's thrown around a lot. You hear that a lot from people in health that, it's a lifestyle. Well, it really is. They're saying it's a lifestyle. Some of them we're going to change your diet a little bit, but we're going to make you exercise 7 days a week. And you're going to do 2.5 hours of cardio every day. That way, you know what I mean? They're not getting the whole concept of, I exercise far less than I did 20 years ago, but I'm in better shape because it's controlled by diet. Diet rules the human body. Without changing your diet, you don't have anything. You can exercise all you want. That's going to eventually catch up to you. You're going to have chronic injuries. You're going to break down, chronic inflammation. That's where, you get stress on the heart muscle, heart attacks. You throw it all in there. And that's what happens. That's why I say, I'm glad you guys started, because I think paleo for most people is the place you should start, in the sense that it cleans a lot of those irritants out of your diet and forces you out of them. Those, for people who don't know, paleo is primarily no grains, no dairy, no legumes, beans is what legumes, beans. And people go, well, why those? Those are what I eat all the time. I go, exactly. That's the problem. They go, well, what's wrong with dairy? And I go, we're the only creature that actually drinks and consumes someone else's milk besides our own human milk. It wasn't really geared for us. Not to say that it's horrible. And there's two sides of the camp on that. I say a little dairy from other animals, as long as it's raw, organic, as clean as you can get it, is fine. But it shouldn't be a staple in your diet, just like beans. We eat a lot of beans. Well, beans have a lot of irritants to the human bowel that we cannot digest. We don't have the enzymes to break the sugars down in certain beans, all of them actually. And then you throw in grains. Grains are pretty recent to the human body. We started, doing I should say community agriculture about 10,000 years ago. And that's not a long time for the human body to evolve into that kind of diet. It could take much longer, and then regionally. So say a perfect example is Aborigines. Aborigines have a very, very difficult time with any dairy product. They just have not consumed dairy. But northern Swedes, well, 70% of them are not lactose intolerant. They only have a 30% rate of lactose intolerance. Well, the Aborigines have about a 70% to 80% lactose intolerance problem. The Chinese, or the Japanese, sorry, they have a different enzyme to digest white rice. That's why they don't get fat on white rice. Well, they process it far differently than we do, than a Caucasian or maybe say Native American. Totally different.
It's crazy.
So, yeah, and that's why I tell people, they expect me to hand them everything. I go, I can't. We're a mixed bag in America. It's hard to tell what you're going to react to until you do it. An allergy test is, because people go, well, I'll just go take an allergy test. And I've done a lot of allergy tests, food allergies and airborne. I had horrible allergies before I changed my diet, and Chambers knows this. I was suffering all the time. What those do is give you a lot of false negatives and a lot of false positives. I found the blood test to be very inaccurate. And I've gotten in arguments with all these health practitioners, I go, you're full of shit. I'm telling you, I've seen it with other people. The best one is the skin prick test. Problem with that, it's a specific strain. So if you're getting a potato, what potato are you getting? Right. You're getting a tomato, what tomato are you getting? It just, there's so much going on. I actually had to do another elimination diet just recently. And people are all, you know what you're doing. I go, yeah, but check this out. I suffered lifelong from cold sores, and I had no idea where I got them from. People are all, it's stress, you're white, you're fair skinned, you go out in the sun too much, you don't drink enough water, this, that. And I go, that is not it. Trust me, after 46 years of my life of not being able to figure it out, I finally figured it out. I have an intolerance to corn, fish, and potatoes.
Well, let me ask you about corn. Corn is...
I just figured it out, and I don't eat a lot of corn.
Yeah.
I do not consume it because it's not technically paleo or primal.
Right.
Well, not only that is, how well does corn really digest anyway?
Not at all, hardly.
Well, I mean, that's what I don't understand is people have so much corn in their diet, and everything I've read and seen is it's almost like a non-digestible food, that even if what does get digested isn't processed well in the body and it's eliminated.
Well, you're thinking of raw corn or just, broiled or, barbecue. You're thinking of the corn cob and the corn kernel. Most corn today is in flour form or an additive or a thickening agent within other foods. High fructose corn syrup. It's not used in the corn form.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it's hard to say just because we've hybridized and genetically modified so many foods that they're far different than they were just 100 years ago. And wheat's a perfect example. There's no such thing as dwarf wheat. Never was. Wheat's high. It's a high plant. And to kind of, that's what I mean. It gets complicated. And that's why I tell people, you kind of just have to, it's trial and error. And you're going to have foods that when you start this, that affected you, that when you clean your diet up, they don't affect you. And then there was foods that you always thought you had a fine time with, now affect you. It's a mixed bag. And I couldn't believe it took me all these years. I've been to every allergist. I've been to every natural practitioner, ND, MD, dermatologist, and they all told me the same thing. You have a immunological problem. And I'm telling you, I would have colds. I would have all these ailments that I do not have. If it was an immunological, I would have allergies to other things. And I just remembered, I figured it out about 6 months ago. Every time I started eating a lot of fish, I would get a nasty cold sore. But I never put them together because I wasn't a big fish eater all my life, but I've eaten fish all my life. And then the corn was one I caught it from. I decided I was going to go on a corn chip binge for like a week. I don't know. I was just craving them. And sure enough, boom, cold sores again. And then potatoes, I got the same. And I didn't know because I was always mixing and separating. And I had to finally do one at a time. I instituted each one by itself without eating any of the others. And I'm not positive. I haven't gotten any since. But I think that's a pretty good guess.
Pretty good indication.
That's unfortunate. That's the way you have to do it, that you have to do it that way. But that really is the only way that you can get dialed into what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, literally no rhyme or reason. I would just wake up or one day have a cold sore out of nowhere. I mean, I wasn't in the sun. I wasn't stressed out, nothing. I would just get them and I remember through my life, I'd go, this has to be food related. It has to be something food. I know it has to be. And but look how long it took me to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that was a tough one because those are ones I wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed, corn. Yeah, maybe. Fish and potatoes. No, I would have never guessed those. And it doesn't matter whether it's shellfish, whether it's, a water-based or just a normal fish. It doesn't matter. Salt water, fresh water does not matter. I have no idea why. I tried them all. It doesn't matter. Just one of those things. The human body is very strange.
So while we're kind of on the subject of diet, I want to ask, Dwayne may have already mentioned this to you, but have you ever done any type of intermittent fasting or researched any of the benefits of that?
I have a chapter of it in my book. Yeah.
Do you? Okay. Well, I had recently done this little 6-week program where that was introduced. And so I would have basically a feeding window I usually start about 12 in the afternoon and then end around 6 or 7 in the evening. And so the first few days, it was a little hard to get used to, a little bit of adjusting, but within the first week, I could not believe my energy levels. Mm-hmm. They were through the roof. And, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 while I'm at work, I was so much more productive. And then on the evenings and on the weekends with my kids, I was so much more engaged. I was fascinated by it. And I told Dwayne a little bit about it and, some of the other benefits that you get in addition to the energy boost and everything. So
intermittent fasting is based on the concept of just like any animal in nature, humans would not have had a consistent food source. So we would starve during certain times. There's times, there's famines historically. There's points in the human life when you would not have access to a whole lot of food or sometimes just none. If you're in a snow blizzard out in the middle of nowhere, there's no food and you're on the side of a mountain, there's no food, there's no vegetation or nothing. So that's where intermittent fasting comes from. And not only that, but we didn't have access to preserved food. So our food had to usually be hunted, gathered, eaten fairly quickly, or it would rot, even though we had preservation techniques that we adopted. But the access to it, we couldn't wake up and have a bag of potato chips at midnight with a couple scoops of ice cream. You didn't have the access. Right. So and it's based upon, they call it the 8-6 rule, or there's a couple different, there's the 16-8, there's variations and there's different times. The easiest time I have found is to have your last meal dinner and roll it right around 5 or 6, and then don't have your first meal until you've completed your 14 or 16 hour window of fasting. So you sleep through most of it.
Right.
So it's easy. And when you wake up, most people, if you've gone through and you've got through the beginning 30 days, you'll notice that you're not as hungry in the morning or not hungry at all. I've noticed that over the years. And I go back and forth. I'll eat in the morning if I'm going to go work out, just because I get really famished by the time I'm done with my workout. So I like to eat a little something before I go in, but that's where it's based upon. What you're doing is you're becoming fat adapted. The human body primarily fuel source is fat. That doesn't mean that we're not using glucose or protein that's turned into glucose, because glucose or protein and fat through a process called gluconeogenesis is converted to blood glucose. It's a complicated mechanism, but a lot of our cells, and I've heard both ways, and I don't know if scientists even know, that we have to have glucose. Our cells feed off glucose. We have to have it for certain vital functions, but fat is a clean burn. So fat is a clean, slower burn of a fuel source. So these energy sources are kicking in and out all the time. That's why we have an ability to store as much fat as we possibly can, basically. We could store fat until we could become immobile and not move. We have an endless source of fat storage. Now, glycogen, which is stored glucose, is not. Average person can store, was it about 14 ounces, if I remember right? That's about it. Athletes have a little more capability of stored glucose, but not much. So you can see that's why we're geared. So what you're doing is, once you're cutting all that sugar out and you're fasting, you're forcing your body to access the fat storage. So now you're burning the clean fuel. Well, they have found through numerous studies that the brain functions better on fat, on ketones. That's why you hear ketosis and ketones and ketone bodies all the time.
I hear that a lot lately.
And people have it way wrong. And even with intermittent fasting, the way you explained it to me, actually you explained it to me wrong. It's the reverse. So you're doing the starting. That's how I recommend people start. Is I go 5 to 6 hours without a meal. Start there, but it's actually going anywhere from 12 to 16 hours without eating. Your feed period is usually within an 8-hour window. You only eat within 8 hours.
No, well, that's what I meant.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I call it my feeding window. So.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So I'll break my fast around noon, and then end the feeding window usually around the 6 or 7.
I thought you flipped it. Okay.
No.
Yeah, and that's what you're doing.
That's my diet. I eat for 20 hours a day and don't eat for 4 hours. That's my diet.
And I don't recommend people use, and what happens is it's just like low carb and ketogenic diet, fat-based diet, high fat. Ketogenic and low carb are not the same. People confuse them all the time. They are both low carb and higher fat, but there's different macro levels in it. But what you don't want to do, and I tell people with these two diets too, is you have about a 2 or 3 week window before you start downregulating your metabolism. Now, does that happen with intermittent fasting? Yes and no, because our metabolism changes all day long. Metabolism is not a set point. Metabolism changes as our energy requirements and as our nutritional requirements and feeding occurs. So it's always happening. Our metabolism's moving around all the time because it's the way we preserve life. That's how we continue to live. If we burnt up here all the time, we'd quickly burn out, we'd starve to death, that'd be it. If it's down here all the time, we'd become morbidly obese, we wouldn't be able to move, and we'd be a snack for a big predator that would just come and eat us because we can't run away. So it has to move. It has to be shuffling around just like our energy systems. So that's why it works that way. But you don't want to do it long term in the sense that you never want your body to get used to anything. The human body, again, we're animals. We're meant to live in nature. We would not eat the same thing all the time, just like we wouldn't exercise the same way all the time. We would be changing things seasonally, and we would be changing things daily, depending on what we had to do. So I never recommend. What will happen, I've noticed, if you stick long-term with intermittent fasting, is you tend to start having issues with muscle mass, depending. I've seen people do it pretty good, but I've noticed eventually it starts to eat away at your muscle mass. I don't know exactly why. I'm guessing that your body's starting to adapt, and it's starting to say, okay, I don't want to be burning this fat all the time, and this ketonic state, I want glucose. And what I'm thinking it's doing is it's going and grabbing it from your muscle. Like I said, the human body is very complicated, and anyone who tells you they've got it all figured out is totally full of shit. Even scientists, PhDs, doctors, I don't care who they are. No one has it figured out. We don't have a clue have a small clue basically of how the body works. So I would never recommend that long term. I would bounce in and out of it. I think you'll find much better results that way too. And not only that, but you're going to be happier.
Yeah. Was that a deal where it was only 6 weeks, a certain specific program?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did it for 6 weeks, and I did kind of feel like towards the end of the 6 weeks that maybe the energy levels, I wasn't getting the exact same benefit that I was in the first 2 or 3 weeks. So it is something that I'm going to, actually, Emily and I are going to do again. Mm-hmm. Well, Emily will do it for the first time, and then I'm going to do it again with her here in the next couple of weeks. I'm really curious and anxious to see if my energy levels do the same thing again.
Yeah, well, here's not start tomorrow on vacation. That's not a good time.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, don't do it on vacation. That's a bad idea. But a lot of people who really are into health, I mean, we're talking people like me, what we'll do is we'll do it a couple times a week. So it won't be a set date. It'll just, we'll mix it in here and there. I used to do a lot of 24-hour fasts. I would just not eat for 24 hours. I've gotten away from that. I just was experimenting. I did it for a year. I would pick a day and a day a week, and I just wouldn't eat for 24 hours. And it was amazing the clarity I had. Near the end of the 24 hours, I'd be a little hazy, but kind of that 12-hour mark, I would be like, boom, I was dead on.
Well, and I've even heard research that leads to say that it can help with Alzheimer's and things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And I can't remember. Dwayne, did I send you the little link? I think it was a TED Talks or something like that. And there was a doctor on there that was talking about the benefits of intermittent fasting. And there were some studies that were done with lab rats and all that jazz. But, one of the things it did is it extended their lifespan. I think by like 30 or 40%. It was something insane. So.
Yeah, I did listen to that, but it was I can't remember what the whole deal was. Once again, I have so much information in my brain, I'd push it out.
Yeah.
Well, and it gets really confusing too, because there's studies to conflict studies, and then there's a study to conflict that other study, and a lot of studies are actually funded by certain groups who are pushing a certain agenda.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's books written on that. Actually, Gary Taubes is an excellent author on research bias. So it's real tricky. I take a lot of research with a grain of salt because I have to pick through it to kind of figure out what they did and where they got their information, especially metadata analysis. It gets really tricky. The sugar industry has done numerous studies funded backdoor to include Coca-Cola, Mars, on the benefits, and that sugar is not toxic and has no detrimental effects to the human body. I kid you not, they've been doing it for decades.
That's sad.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. The food industry, they're smart. They found out what hooks humans, and it's sugar.
Yeah.
High carb, high sugar, make it cheap and quick as possible, and keep us feeding. The more we eat, the more money they make. It is plain and simple. And then the drug industry loves it because then we got to take all the pharmaceutical drugs. So we're feeding two massive beasts at the same time. And the only person who suffers for it is the organism, the human, us.
Right.
Us dummies floating around, making everyone rich. And we're getting unhealthier as it goes. But yeah, a little tangent there. But no, the intermittent fasting is a great technique to employ. I really do highly recommend it, and to play with it. Like I said, it's not written in stone. Just put it here and there, or there's days, it's like my dog. There's just some days my dog just doesn't want to eat. I put food, and he's just like, nah, I'm just, either has a bug or he's just not hungry. There's times in the day where I'm not hungry either, and I sit there and I'm staring at food and I go, what am I doing? I don't even want to eat, but I'm programmed that I need to eat.
Right. It's 8 a.m. I need to eat breakfast. It's 12 o'clock. I need to eat lunch. It's 6 o'clock. I need to eat dinner.
Well, yeah. And I didn't eat. The first meal I had today was at 9:30. I didn't eat, and that's why I was rushing. I didn't eat till 5:30 again. And that was just a day. And then I'll go back through night again, and I'll go through another weird fast. And that's another thing people notice too, is you're going to eat less.
I did. Oh my gosh. I did. A lot less. Yes.
Like half. On average, It's about half.
Yes.
Because a calorie is not a calorie. Again.
I ended up losing, and I did not do this to get into lose weight. I was getting into the 6-week program so that I could kind of tone and build muscle and, just health benefits. I did not want to lose weight. Can't say that enough. Lost 6 pounds. Yep. And got to the point where I had to become very conscious of what I was eating and how much I was eating to try to get enough calories in within my feeding window. So
because everything changes, your digestion changes, the way you absorb nutrients changes, everything starts to change, your gut flora. The human body is an incredibly complicated chemistry experiment that, like, again, no one understands. Holy, there's so many chemical reactions going on in the human body, and they're different between race, ethnic group, male, female, tall, short. It's all over the board. So with that, I always tell people a benefit of eating a healthy diet is having a sexy body. That's a side effect of it. That's what happens if you do it right. And there's been studies done over about 100 years ago now, where a doctor or a dentist named Weston A. Price went out and studied indigenous cultures that had not been influenced by the Western diet. And what he found, and he shows pictures, they're basically our models today. Perfect teeth, they're ripped, got six packs on them, they're happy, and they're standing in a loincloth holding a rabbit. Yeah. And you're going, we're missing the point. We're totally missing the point. But one thing he found is that they all ate a different variation of basically a primal paleo diet. He never found any vegans in his entire study. He never found one. Now, a vegan's very different, and we talked about that too. I have nothing against it, but if you're going to be a vegan, you better do your research, because being a vegan does not consist of just eating food. You have to supplement, because you're not getting nutrients that the human body was geared to get. You're missing a whole food group, animals. And people go, well, the human, their teeth, this, no. Trust me, humans were geared to eat animals. There's a reason why, because if it's very simple, that you go out somewhere and you look, if you're in nature, the one food, no matter what part of the world you're in, except for certain parts of Antarctica where there's nothing, absolutely nothing, that's why people don't live there, or animals, is animals. Because what do you have to be next to all the time in order to survive as a human? Water. You have to be near a water source. What's in water? Fish, frogs, snakes, alligators, all kinds of nice, tasty things to eat. So, I mean, it's just common sense. I mean, you have to put it in a common sense perspective. But I tell people who want to be vegan for ethical reasons, they just don't believe in the harming of animals. I get it. Totally get that. If that's your deal, hey, I'm not going to talk you out of it. That's your personal preference. But I've seen a lot of sick vegans, really sick vegans. But the ones who do it right, supplement. They have to supplement a protein source, usually a creatine source, which comes from protein. They're going to be lacking in a lot of B vitamins, which are only found in animal flesh. So it gets complicated. And that's what I mean. People take this health thing and they dive in, not realizing if you don't know how to cook, you're going to tweak your body and become a health expert overnight and not learn anything. It's a long, low road. And I'm glad that you guys have done well, by the way. I know Dwayne's done my stuff before. But this is the first time he's really stuck with it and done it long term. And I don't say you have to just do my thing. There's plenty of people out there who know what they're doing. I just think mine's one of the simpler ones to follow for a beginner. And that's why I wrote it for. I did my whole program for people who know nothing, zero. And that's what I wrote it for. I didn't write it for, an advanced person like me.
And Dwayne would probably agree with me. I think one of the main motivating factors at this point in our lives is our kids. I mean, like I said, I grew up with just a mom and frozen bean burritos and frozen pot pies and.
Yep. Oh, the frozen pot pies. I remember those. 59 cents. You used to buy those in college. 59 cents on sale. It was the Sarah Lee?
Probably. Sarah Lee. And I think Betty Crocker had a
no. That was the expensive one. I was in college. I couldn't afford the Betty Crocker one.
We had Banquet.
Oh, that's it. I remember Banquet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you'd go down the aisle to get the SpaghettiOs, and then I ate like it.
But for me, it's about being that role model for my kids, and that's one thing I've enjoyed about being in the kitchen. Like I said before, it never was really that enjoyable, but I honestly, and I told my husband Mark this the other day, I said, I've actually enjoyed this because it's the two of us in the kitchen together. cooking, and it's just kind of our time to be together, and then the kids are hanging around. Sometimes they're in the backyard, but they're in and out, and they're watching us. They pick up on more than what we realize. So it's going to be it's going to be ingrained in them that this is what you do. You come home and you cook dinner, and you sit at a table and you eat dinner together as a family. So
well, that's a very good point you bring up, because think about it. Humans, when you looked at our patterns of life, what it revolved around was family, eating together, first hunting, then we would eat together, and then games. I mean, that's how humans spent a lot of their time in learning. We were naturally curious, and that's why some of our ancestors were so brilliant at astrology and understanding, or astronomy, astrology, that too, in some of the more mythical senses. So it makes sense. And I always tell people, though, the first place you should start, I mean, even though Emily, you said you did it for your kids, I'll bet deep down, the first part was you did it for yourself. Because I'll tell you right now, I deal with addicts all the time. I deal with food addicts. That's what I call them. Food addicts and exercise not addicts. And it's kind of the first thing I say. I say, why are you doing it? And I get the canned answer. Oh, I'm doing it for my kids. I'm doing it for my wife. I'm doing it for my husband. I go, bullshit. I go, honestly, are you doing it for them? Because I need to know. And they go, yes. I go, are you telling me again? Because you think I want to hear that? And they go, and I go, so you're not doing this for yourself at all? And they go, yeah, okay. The ones that say, yes, I'm doing it for myself first, 90% success rate.
Yeah.
The people who come in and say they're doing it
for yourself, then there's
no point.
Stick with it. There's no point in even doing it.
No, I call it deflected failure. It's easier to deflect the failure on an outside source than an inside source. And I've used doing what I do. I have to be a psychiatrist, and I really do. I mean, a psychologist. God, I can't prescribe. I have to get in the minds of people, and kind of it's understanding where the human desire comes from. I mean, it boils down to that. What do you desire to be in life? And I say, if you're not desiring to be healthy, what are you desiring to be? Because not everything evolves from what you stick in your mouth and how much movement you get. All your happiness, all of your relationships, everything is based upon that. And people never boil it down to those simple points. I go, if you don't start there, everything else is wasted. And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I go, trust me, how many people in this country today are absolutely painfully miserable? A lot. And I'll go, if I go up to them and I go, what's going to make you happy? The first thing out of their mouth is money. I go, no, it's actually your health. You can have all the money you want, but I'm telling you, if you're healthy, all that other shit is a lot less important. Because if you feel like crap every day, but you got $1 million in the bank, what good is the $1 million? It doesn't do you anything.
And what's probably so frustrating for you, or one of the things probably frustrating, is getting people started, because that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. And it's like, if you can just get over that hump, and then you start to feel those benefits. And, I mean, I tell Dwayne all the time, the runner's high that I get. I mean, it is addicting. And, of course, I've got this injury that I'm dealing with, and I've been kind of trying to nurse it for 3 weeks. And here and there, I'll be like, oh, I'm better. And I'll go out and run. And, I'm not. So, but anyways, this past 3 weeks, it's just been terrible for me. It's just, I just want to get out and run and get my frustration out. And then, I feel better. And it sets the tone and the mood for the entire day.
Well, and you're bringing up a good point. That's what old dudes, new tricks. I mean, we're all getting older, and that's the point of it. And I have pretty horrific injuries, and I can't run anymore. I haven't ran in 6-7 years. I mean, I just can't. I'm unable. Every once in a while, I'll go out and test it, and I'm in so much pain that I go, okay, that was a bad idea. But there's different ways, and I tell people that you have to work within the constraints of your body anyway. As we age, joints start to give out. We've been eating like crap. We've had chronic inflammation. We've got bone degeneration. We've hammered away at our tendons and ligaments. You got to kind of figure out, most people, in their late 40s, just, we have some I'm not saying you're that age, Emily, by any stretch. Me and Dwayne, we start dealing with that. So what I do is I actually bike, I mountain bike, I road bike, I do other things. When I go work out, I work around my injuries, and people are pretty surprised that I can keep in the shape I can by not doing a lot of the stuff they think I do. I don't do any of it. I don't do squats. I haven't done a squat and God, I don't even know how long. And they make me cringe just looking at one. I'll do them unweighted, and I'll do a gorilla squat, which is something totally different, but I will not do a weighted bar on my back, on my shoulder. I will not do that. I won't even do it without, with just the barbell. So what you need to do is, because also exercise, again, from the psychological sense, it is where we let things go. And especially in today's stressful society, exercise is incredibly important. And I go for a 2 to 3 mile walk every night with my dog. It's just what I do. Hit or miss. And my dog, if I try and miss it, he will just lose his friggin' mind. He knows what time we're supposed to go for our walk. He knows how long it's supposed to be, so I can't short it or screw around. And what it does is it dedicates me, because now I'm punishing my dog. My dog wants to get out and go. And, so doing stuff like that. So go for a walk. 25% of the bones in your body are in your feet. So there's a reason for that. That was the human automobile before automobiles, our feet. So get out there and move. Just moving in general. The lymphatic system, I'm sure you guys have heard of lymph, right? Lymph nodes. Well, it's all through your body. There's lymph nodes, there's lymph vessels, or I guess you'd call them veins, but it goes all through your body. And lymph is used for two things. It's used to excrete and get toxins out of your body, and it's to get nutrients to certain parts, to most of your body. That's how lymph works. Guess how is the only way lymph moves through the body? There is no pump system. You have to move. It works off muscle contractions and movement. So if you don't move, that's why you'll hear people with lymph node issues, because the ducts and everything start to get clogged because it's not moving. This shit's not that complicated when you break it down. Eat right. And we're not talking, you got to eat, eat every single day, every single meal, super, super healthy. 80-20 rule works great for most people. Once you get healthy, it turns into a 95-5, because that 20 starts to become painful. And that's how I am. I go out and have a couple beers. That's it. I'm done. And I'll pay for it the next day. So drinking starts to go away, and you're aging and your hangovers are worse. So
I paid for it on Sunday morning, Dwayne.
Yeah, you did.
No, I woke up Sunday morning. I was like, that was not worth it. The 2 margaritas and the bottle of wine and whatever else, it was just not worth it.
Well, and that's a difference too, is again, alcohol. People go, oh, Gary's an alcohol anti this. No, I think alcohol is great. I just don't abuse it and drink it every single day. What it is too is our alcohols are highly processed now too. So even people say that, and I guarantee this came from the wine industry, because there is not enough quercetin in, or hopefully I'm saying that right, or any of the basically the antioxidants contained in grapes. There's not enough in wine to make a big difference, really. It's kind of bullshit. But most wine today is far more harmful than good. There's all kinds of preservatives in it. It's just, and you'll notice you'll get a headache from it. I have a glass of wine, like a processed normal wine. The next day I got a headache, and I'm all, why do I have a headache? And I go, oh, I had a glass of wine last night. But if I have an organic wine, I'm fine. But the taste is different too. Organic takes a little while and once you open that bottle up, you better drink it.
Do you get organic wine just from where you would buy any other wine, or?
A lot of liquor stores, and I think even Trader Joe's may have some organic wine now, but it's not that hard to find anymore.
Please say 2 Buck Chuck is organic.
Oh yeah, of course.
It's 3 Buck Chuck now.
I know.
And Boone's Farm, of course, that's all organic. We used to. God, I remember the games we played with Boone's Farm. But yeah, so you're drinking, again, it's high sugar, most of it, because someone got in an argument with me that goes, alcohol doesn't have sugar. And I go, yeah, pure alcohol. Who is going out drinking moonshine most of the time? I go, yeah, some people out in sticks. I've drank moonshine, and it's really good. But for the most part, the alcohol we drink today, highly processed, a lot of calories, a lot of sugar, a lot of, just a lot of things that can do you harm. So it's not necessarily the alcohol, it's the source of. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of hooch over the last 3-4 years from individuals who I know and meet with. And I'm going to tell you, it is good stuff. And you don't have the hangover. You still, well, don't get me wrong, you'll be hungover the next day, but it's a different hangover. It's just like a food over. Hey, that's a good example. Remember in boot camp, what they did to us? We would get these care packages. So we could get care packages from our parents, but we couldn't get them directly. They would get stored in our company commander's office. So there would be just boxes of crap in there. And it was all food for the most, and it was all junk. I mean, it was junk.
Twinkies and ho-hos and
exactly.
And I mean, people from the South, I mean, just sugar and butter based. I mean, it was insane. So what did he do? It was about 3 times. He just said, you guys get the next 5 hours or whatever. Not even that. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is all you get. He'd bring all the boxes out. We'd open it and just start. Oh, and we had to share it. You couldn't just go, oh, this is my mom's package. This is my special. I'm going to eat. No. There was none of that. You ate everyone. It was a free-for-all. And guys' bellies would be all distended and just pure sugar. Those were the worst hangovers. And we called them food overs.
Yeah.
And sugar overs, because the next day we were wrecked.
Oh, he was mentally wrecked, physically wrecked. We would go out and didn't even want to march.
Remember guys breaking out and running because they were about ready to crap their pants?
Yeah, exactly.
And they'd have to run. Literally, you'd see them grabbing the back of their pants and they'd bolt out of formation. And the company commander just be like, oh, yeah, that's right. I gave him all that crap last week. He'd just be like, no problem. Go ahead. And just to see the toxic effects of what we consume. To say, is a cookie bad? Yeah, it depends. Usually, yeah. But if you have one, you're all right. If you have 8, well, now you got a problem. So it's all about rational thinking too. It's making better choices. And that's what you're on. You're on the path of, you were probably pretty healthy before, I would guess, but you were following the wrong model.
Right.
Is what I call it. You thought you had it wired because you probably read, let me guess, Shape, Self Magazine, Women's Health. I know there's the men's versions of those too.
Right. And
they're pretty identical, to be honest with you. But I noticed I did a little test on Shape magazine because they kept hounding me. And they sent me magazines. I'm a guy. Why do you keep sending? I don't know where these are coming from. But I was on a health professional list, and I kept getting these odd women's magazines. And it wasn't a joke. They just send them to you. And I counted, I want to say it was 20-something pharmaceutical ads.
Oh my gosh.
If not more, in the magazine. And what they would do is they give you one article that was right, that made sense, and then all the others contradicted it and told you to do something totally different, and then drug ads. What are they promoting? They're not promoting health. And that's what I mean. It's just being smart and thinking about it. And the easiest way I can tell people to figure it out, look at it human as an animal, go outside and say, okay, what would I have access to? Food-wise, honestly, what would I be able to eat? And what would I eat? What would keep me alive? They can look at the grass out here and go, well, shit, there's 5 acres of grass out there. I'll eat the shit out of it. You're not going to sustain. A human cannot, I couldn't mow enough grass out there and stuff it down my throat in a day to sustain myself. So it's pretty basic, and you're getting it. And that's why you're kind of seeing the paleo mindset. I get touchy with paleo because there's a lot of bad paleo out there, but it sounds like Dwayne explained, I remember it now. He started telling me the menus. I go, okay, good. The menu seems right. Because what happened is paleo fell into I called it the paleo dessert model. Sure, it was paleo, but it was a cookbook filled with basically high carb and desserts. That's all it was. So you're exchanging one bad food for another bad food, but it was paleo.
Right.
No. It doesn't mean eat bacon dipped in honey and sweet potato every day. You're going to get fat eating that,
You need the variety. Well, and I can remember kind of an aha moment for me was when Emily and Dwayne had said, the theory behind the Fresh 20 is shopping the perimeter of the grocery store. And I never had thought about the grocery store that way, but it's like, oh, yeah, the perimeter of the grocery store is where all the fresh produce and the meat and, it's none of the processed stuff, all that you find in the middle of the grocery store in the aisles where you're going up and down.
Well, you wouldn't believe how much research went into the development of the modern grocery store.
Oh, I can imagine.
The reason grocery stores are designed the way they are is because they put a lot of money in figuring out how to make us buy the most unhealthy, most profitable foods that they could. That's why everything is on the outside, is because we're more likely to cruise the aisles.
You go up and down, up and down.
Go up and down. I mean, there was a ton of human interaction studies, what we eat, eyeball far as what colors, what attracts us, what height. You wouldn't believe how much money has been dumped in this. And not only that, but the average grocery store has 48,000 items in it. I did the math. This is in my book too.
Whoa.
It would take you, if you bought one item a day and consumed it, it would take you 123 years to consume every item in that grocery store.
Wow.
I hate to be the guy with the tin hat, but I worked in it.
Then let's talk about the candy placement from a parent's perspective.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
and there goes my dog. Sorry.
I didn't know if that was Mad Dog or if that was yours.
No.
And
Mad Dog's downstairs somewhere.
Well, and that's what I mean. And once you put your thinking hat on, the problem today is we become drones. And I get into a whole process, and Dwayne's heard a million times of my little rants, and I get on my soapbox. But I take it from a position of I was there. I didn't read books. I didn't watch cute videos. I didn't go to some seminar. I was on the inside of the food and drug industry. I was on the inside of the health industry, the medical industry. I know how this shit works. So I get pissed when people start arguing with me and I go, what'd you work in? Oh, you're a barista at Starbucks? Oh, now you got a paleo cookbook? Oh, great. Okay. I'm going to listen to you. Okay. I get a little pissed off over that because I'm like, trust me on this stuff. Industry is built to make money. It's not meant to make you healthy. The food industry, if it was geared to make you healthy, a grocery store would have about 200 to 300 items, and it would be as big as my travel trailer, basically. If it was geared to make you healthy, and actually it would be outside.
Yeah, well, that's what they call farmers markets.
Farmers market, exactly, because it's air, because the sunlight and air is the best way to dissipate, harmful bacteria and all that. Not only that, but you got to get adapted to this stuff. That's where we have problems with our food too, is it travels such a great distance, even organic food. It's coming from a totally different soil structure. It's coming from a different continent in most cases. Well, the human body has gotten adapted to the area you're in. So there's different microorganisms and things that we adapt to because we're 99 to 1 in 100 bacteria to cells. We're primarily composed of living bacteria. We have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria. If we didn't have, and viruses, there's viruses we have too all the time, that if we didn't have this, we would literally die because those bacteria keep us in check, keep our chemical reactions in check, help us break down nutrients, food. So that's what I mean. So it gets even trickier. Now you're all, oh shit, I just learned this. Now, oh my God, and that's why you always hear buy local. Always buy local. That's why farmers markets have become so popular, because your flora and your body is geared towards that environment that you are in. That's why people talk about raw honey, and someone can have a real horrific reaction from honey from like New Zealand. Well, because we don't live in New Zealand. We don't have bees from New Zealand. They're pollinating and grabbing nectar from plants over there. That's a different fauna. That's a totally different thing. And then we bring it over here and we take it. Well, honey's good. And then all of a sudden we're swolled up or we itchy throat. Well, what's going on? Common sense. It's like, use your head. Common sense. It's not that you can't have that honey from New Zealand, but understand that you could have a negative reaction to it. And it's not the honey. It's where it's from.
Right.
And that's how I tell people. So I know you're going, oh my God, why did I ever talk to this guy?
No, actually, no, my dog just came up the stairs. That's why I keep looking over it.
But anyway, we're about an hour in. I know Emily and I have a vacation to start tomorrow, so let's wrap this puppy up. And I wanted, like I said, I wanted to get Emily on here to get a little bit different perspective and everything. And but I do appreciate you coming on and just getting Gary's mind working a little bit today. And you got anything else, Gary? Plug your book?
No, it was, and I deal with health all the time, but I don't work with people one-on-one as much anymore just because it's too painful. That's why I wrote the books, to be honest with you. I figure if you don't have the initiative to get the books and actually try and apply it yourself, I've learned I waste my time a lot. So that's where it comes from. But it's good to hear from someone kind of in the beginning stages for other people. Because what you did is you made me have to go rehash and rethink of all the beginner steps that I would tell someone if I was consulting them one-on-one, and kind of run them through this kind of myriad of where you start, where you're looking to go. And I'd end it with people be patient. That's the biggest problem we have today with health is people, you've been screwing your body up for decades. Most of us, there's a small percentage that did it right, very small. And I wasn't one of them. That it takes a long time for your body to adapt. And that first 12 to 18 months is where you're going to see some changes and some things are going to start moving on you. For me, my seasonal allergies, which were my biggest debilitating factor that I had in health for the most part, besides injuries, it took about 2 to 3 years for that to clear out. All of a sudden, my seasonal allergies went totally away. Went from taking allergy pills all my life to taking like 4 or 5 a day at times to where I haven't taken anything. So that's what I mean. But it took time. And if I wouldn't have given my body the time and I would have jumped down another rabbit hole and tried something different, I would have screwed myself up again. So stay the course. Paleo works for about 95% of the people out there. There's about 5% that it won't work for because of their specific genetics. But for the most part, the paleo diet works. I mean, that's why I always say it's a great place to start. And then you can tweak it from there. So yeah, you guys are 2 good experiments to prove my points that I talk about and write about all the time, actually. And I just so happen to know you guys, so it makes it a little easier.
Well, I've always appreciated your information. And even though I'm not perfect on the diet, like you said, I'm more the 80-20 right now. And I would like to dial back in when we get back on vacation. I'm sure I will. But, once again, thanks everybody for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, go to our website, olddudesnewtricks.com, and check out some of the other stuff we've got on there. For more information on what Gary talked about tonight, go to primalpowermethod.com and check out all his stuff. His books are a great resource if you're wanting to start out in this lifestyle, because it is definitely a lifestyle. If you're doing it for a diet, not going to work. If you want to change your lifestyle, this is something for you. Check us out on Twitter, Old Dudes Podcast. Check it out. Check us out on Facebook, Old Dudes New Tricks on Facebook, and make sure, let us know what you want to hear. We're wanting to get information. If you know somebody out there that's interesting that you think would be great for a podcast, let us know too, because we would love, we're looking for guests and we're looking for a vast variety of guests. So,
well, not only that, if you think you're interesting and you got something to share, we'll decide for you.
Yeah, exactly. Might not like our answer, but we'll give you.
I mean, and that's what I did in the beginning. I mean, no one knew who I was, and I would just go, hey, I think I got something to say, and I'd go hit someone on contact on their webpage, or and there's a lot of brilliant people out there that have a lot of information that no one's ever heard of. So hey, if you think you got a story to share or some good information, hit us up, send us an email, and put a couple. Don't write me either one of us a book. But, put a paragraph in there telling us your story or what you think you can share.
All right. Well, guys, appreciate you guys listening again. And I guess we'll see you next week.